Production funding for KET's presentation of Street Skills was made possible in part by the Anthem Foundation, Incorporated.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
People love to move around. We love speed and the freedom of mobility. It's been that way for thousands of years. Nothing has moved us like the automobile. You see, the modern car is an amazing machine, the product of science and engineering. Driving is an art, and like any art, it takes time to learn. But driving also has a lot of rules. You may think you already know a lot about driving, and maybe you do. But what happens if you're cruising along and something like this happens? What do you do? The road is full of surprises. Eventually, you'll meet the unexpected. Now, if you're a good driver, you can handle it. Now, we could all be better drivers, but there are people who actually are expert drivers. They are going to help us learn how to handle the road. Now, a good driver learns to take driving apart, to look at its pieces. Driving has three basic parts: the car, the road, and the driver. We're going to look at all three, but let's start with the driver. That, of course, would be you.
How well do you drive?
I think I drive pretty well. I've only wrecked once.
I think I drive a little bit too fast at times.
I think I get too nervous.
I'm a pretty good driver. I speed now and then, but I'm not reckless.
Sometimes I just listen to music, get caught up in it or whatever, or talking to a friend that's with me. I don't pay attention to what's around me enough.
I think I'm a really horrible driver.
How well do you think your friend right here drives?
She drives okay, I guess.
I'll take the fifth on that one.
Well, to be at this age, 17, 18, they drive pretty decent.
Well, what about your parents?
How well do you think your parents drive?
Sometimes when my mother gets a little bit out of hand when she drives pretty fast. My dad drives rather well because he's a cop, but my mom can't drive.
Do you think your parents are good drivers?
Excellent drivers.
They're excellent drivers.
Driving means being responsible for a 2,000-pound hunk of steel. If you can't control it, you risk hurting yourself and others. First thing you have to know about drivers is that drivers and their mistakes cause an overwhelming majority of traffic crashes. For young people between the ages of 15 and 24, the death rate for traffic collisions is higher than any other cause of death, nearly twice that of homicide, nearly 3 times that of suicide. Second important fact about drivers. See, it's easier for them to prevent trouble than it is to get out of it. That means pay attention, slow down, give yourself time to react. Third important fact about drivers. They don't have all that much protection. Now, car makers are talking more and more about safety nowadays, and the industry may be moving slowly in that direction. But don't kid yourself. Now, don't count on all that flashy chrome and steel and shiny glass to protect you. Doesn't work like that. Now, no car can give you complete protection. I mean, for you to be as safe as you could possibly be, you'd have to drive one of these. Fact number 4 about drivers. Now, when they get behind the wheel, strange things can happen to their minds. Well, as you see, cars aren't just for transportation anymore.
In our cultures, we seek to find status, and certainly automobiles are a status-seeking, a way of status-seeking, and it is a mark of who we are, what we're about. So it seems like the status for the adolescent is they want to take ownership of that vehicle so that it becomes a part of them and it expresses who they are. When you see the bumper stickers and you see the graffiti maybe even on the sides of cars and through the cars, it really speaks of who the person wants to express themselves as to the community, as to the other drivers on the road. I think that we do get locked into status with automobiles. I do. I mean, that's the kind of car I drive. You know, I drive a '65 Mustang. That's status for me, you know.
Some of my more memorable experiences while behind the wheel have taken place overseas. Though I really enjoyed my time overseas, I did have some problems acclimating on the road because I did not have a complete grasp of the German language. Well, here's an example. If I got cut off in traffic, the vilest thing I could scream was the equivalent of, "Go away, you big bad man." It simply lacked a certain impact.
We do sometimes take on other personalities in a safe environment where we're not going to be threatened or we're not going to be harmed for what we say, think, or do. And I think in an environment when you're inside of your own automobile, we have maybe a false sense of security, so that when we're being aggressive or acting out or assertive in the way we're driving our automobiles, it may be an extension of what happened at home in the morning when you left. It may have been what you're feeling about having to go to the job, or the crisis that maybe you've had to resolve in the night in some way. And it's a way that you can take it out without really being held accountable. In a certain way, that you can drive faster, you can make gestures, you can blow horns, you can cut people off, you can slam on brakes, you can do things of that nature and not really be held accountable for it. Nobody's going to judge you for that makes any difference.
So before you start driving, be aware of how you feel and get the right attitude. And when you see other drivers on the street, always assume the worst. Cars and roads may be getting safer, but human nature doesn't change. Never assume another driver will do what's logical, safe, or even smart. Drive defensively. I mean, be careful, because the road can be a scary place. I mean, sooner or later, odds are you'll find yourself in a dangerous situation, and that beautiful new car could end up looking like this. The main factor in the severity of all these crashes is speed. It makes all the difference.
This is a funny little book. It doesn't look like much, but you open up right to the front here, and 90% of the questions that kids have to ask me are all answered in this book. Check this out. It has things about the battery, jump-starting the car. It's something you ought to know how to do, or else you can explode a battery. It has operation of the air conditioning and heating system. I get a lot of questions about that. It's something you ought to know. It's in the book. Okay, emergency stuff is all in here. Changing a flat tire. If you don't put the jack in the right spot, you can destroy the body. Today's unibody cars are not like the old ones. The metal is a lot thinner. The oil is the biggest question I get, and I always recommend every 3 months or every 3,000 miles, even though the book might say something different. If you bring your car in every 3,000 miles or 3 months, your mechanic's going to tell you what's coming up. Not because he wants to sell you something. We really don't like doing major work. If we catch it sooner, it'll be a lot cheaper, and we don't have to work on your car for 3 days. And that's something you ought to know.
You have to make the car fit you and your needs, because when you get inside the car, things get tricky. The first problem is visibility, seeing what's around you. Mirrors help some, but on either side of your car, you have big blind spots. When you drive, your you're always working against your blind spots, entering expressways, changing lanes. You're always fighting for more visibility. The only way to clear out these blind spots is to turn your head. Motorcycles and bikes can get lost in blind spots really easily, so you have to be especially careful about them.
I'm riding a motorcycle a lot. And basically, when I'm riding a motorcycle, I basically assume I'm invisible, that they could not see me. And that way, I never make, that way I'm a lot more aware of everybody else. I can see the way their front tires turning, if they're going to try and pull out when I'm going by, or so watching them at the side street, make sure they see me, and that's the awareness of the other drivers is really, really important.
You also need to develop a feeling for the space your car occupies to get an idea of how much room you have around you. After a while, you get a picture in your head, a sense of where you are, and that helps you to do the basic stuff like turning and backing up, and the harder things like the dreaded parallel parking.
So what you want to do is go ahead and turn your right turn signal on, flash your brakes, let the traffic behind you know that you're getting ready to set up for parallel parking. Pull up approximately 3 feet from the car in front of the space and even with that car. And go ahead and put it in reverse, look over your right shoulder and cut the wheel sharply to your right, and you want to go about halfway into the parking space. Once you're approximately halfway in, then you will cut the wheel sharply to your left, and you want to pull within about a foot of the car that's behind you. Then once you do that, you go ahead and put it in drive, pull forward and a little bit to your right so that you get stay in the space. That's good.
Got it.
It might take a little time to develop, but with practice, it'll come. Now let's look at the road. The road is always talking to you, sending you messages, giving you important information. Speed limits aren't there just to frustrate you. They're the maximum safe speed for that particular road, the fastest you can go to get yourself out of trouble if something unexpected happens. You know what stop signs look like. When you come up to one, always come to a full stop. Don't just roll through. Warning signs are diamond-shaped and yellow. They say, hey, look out. The road narrows, slippery when wet, curves ahead, merging traffic, signal ahead, slow down. There's a hill coming up or a divided highway. Pedestrian crossing, deer crossing, then, of course, there are traffic lights.
The red light at a traffic signal and the green one are the two simple ones. Red means to stop, and you're supposed to stay there unless a right turn's allowed on red. Green means to go. The yellow is the confusing one. In a lot of places, people interpret that as meaning to speed up to get through the intersection, when in reality it means to clear the intersection, which means any cars that would be in the intersection at the time it turns yellow need to clear out. Anybody else entering the intersection should not do so. The biggest problem probably with the yellow light is most people are impatient and they just feel that it's going to cost them more time than necessary if they slow down and stop. You are going to have more side collisions at an intersection. Slowly but surely, the car manufacturers are starting to incorporate side airbags, which is to help take that into account. But there is less protection. It's just your door. They do have some sort of bars or barriers to protect you within the door, but it can create problems as far as the car that enters the intersection and runs into the carway actually enters into the vehicle itself. And then you have the sideways motion, which can be rough on a person's body.
The road itself gives you a painted message, tells you where you should turn and where you should stop. Yellow lines divide two-way traffic. A double yellow line says do not pass. A broken yellow line means you can pass if the situation permits, but a solid yellow line next to a broken one means you can't pass from that lane. As you drive, you're always scanning the road ahead. You're always taking in images, pictures that you put together in your mind. You're always evaluating what you see, always reacting to it, so you can anticipate problems before they happen. As you drive, you're constantly talking to yourself about what you see and how things could change. Like, okay, everything's clear in this lane. Car on my right, not paying great attention. Oh, man, why did you have to pull in front of me like that? Oh, okay, I got a couple kids on bikes. I better slow down. It's simple. In driving, some vehicles have more rights than others, like emergency vehicles, for instance.
Basically, when we respond code 3 to an incident, we're going to go with lights and sirens going. A code 3 incident is going to be anything with a trauma involved, an MVA, a motor vehicle accident where there's trauma, or injuries are unknown. If you don't know, if you have a small amount of information to go upon, you may respond code 3 anyway, simply because you don't know. So you need to get to the scene as quickly as possible. That means driving with lights and sirens. We go 5 miles an hour over the speed limit in the city, 10 miles an hour over on the interstates. It puts us in a hazardous situation and also drivers. So that's why we ask that when you see an ambulance, lights, sirens coming, to move one way or the other. If you can pull off the road into a driveway, a commercial, if there's a restaurant or something there, wherever you're at, look, do a quick glance, see if you can get off the road completely. That would just be wonderful for everybody involved. Weather conditions play a major factor. Wet, rainy days, you're not going to be able to stop an apparatus as quickly. Slick roads, always a problem. These ambulances that we drive have a tendency to be a little top-heavy, especially the newer ones, which are the box units. So when you curve a corner, you'll feel movement in the back. And the third element is you've got somebody in the back of that ambulance. When you're going to the hospital, it's not just the patient, you've got your medic back there. And for anybody who's ever ridden in the back of an ambulance going code 3 to the hospital doing CPR, it is one wild ride. You're holding on with one hand up here, doing compressions with the other hand down here. You've got your feet wedged in trying to hang on, trying to start IVs, maintain an airway, and the whole time you're shifting. It's like being on a boat in the ocean. It is an incredible sensation. A lot of times people will just stop, and you can almost see the thought process going on ahead of you. Even though you're going code 3, they're thinking, should I go right? Should I go left? Should I just sit here and do nothing? Basically, if you can think clearly, move to the right, if possible, and come to a complete stop, that's going to help us tremendously.
Sometimes it might be less obvious, like at a four-way stop.
Okay, we're at a four-way stop. Who goes first?
Cars that are ahead of you get the right of way first. Whoever reaches the stop first proceeds with caution.
Do you know who gets to go first at a four-way stop?
The first person there, I guess.
If you're the first one there, you go ahead.
Right. At a four-way stop, the car that gets there first has the right of way.
Okay, what about if you're driving, there's 3 people arrive at the four-way stop at the same time?
And the person on the right has the right of way.
I always just wait until everybody's gone before I go.
You stop and you wait for the person on the right-hand side, I think. I'm not for sure at all.
The person on the right of you get to go first, depending on whoever comes to the stop sign first.
Haha, you got it. When cars get there at the same time, the one on the right has the right of way. Other cars just go in that order.
The intersection of a main and a secondary roadway, the main roadway always has the right-of-way. That would be whether the secondary roadway has a stop sign or not. For example, the driveway would be a good example of that. No stop sign, but the right-of-way would be for the main roadway. One of the things about right-of-way that's consistent is, however, that you should yield the right-of-way if it means to avoid a collision. I may be on the main roadway, but if a car pulls out in front of me, then obviously I need to yield the right-of-way to that secondary roadway to avoid a collision. When you merge onto a limited access highway, such as an interstate, biggest thing that a person needs to do is to use the acceleration lane that's made available to them to get their speed up to that of the traffic with which they're merging. In most places, be going in from the right-hand side, so you would signal with the left turn signal. And then you need to do not only a check of your mirrors, but you need to do a head check. In other words, turn your head to look over your left shoulder to make sure that there aren't any cars there, keeping in mind that mirrors do produce blind spots, and you can lose an entire vehicle in that blind spot. So the biggest thing is just to get the speed up, even with the traffic that you're merging with.
When someone's trying to merge, hey, give them a break. Be respectful. It goes a long way in driving. Signaling is also a way to show respect for other drivers. You've got to let people know what you're going to do. Think ahead so you can signal early and give them plenty of time to get the message. Don't surprise people. One final point on right-of-way. Cars always yield to pedestrians. Watch out for kids and people in wheelchairs. They're often below your normal line of vision, and you can miss them if you're not careful. Bicycles at an intersection you treat like any other vehicle. Legally, they are supposed to act like other vehicles, but often they don't, so be particularly careful. Now, maybe this is basic stuff, but often drivers forget the basics. Crashes result, collisions that shouldn't even happen. A simple fender bender suddenly isn't so simple when you add up the cost of getting it fixed. And sometimes it can cost more than money.
Waking up to go to school and wanting to sleep till the last second, rushing around the house, trying to put my makeup on and get my shoes on, running out the door. Then I get in the car and I've got 5 minutes to get to a place that takes 30 minutes to get there. Constantly, I mean, feeling like Terry Labonte or somebody, swerving in and out, trying to get there, passing everybody on the road. Just always wait until the last second. When I had my wreck, I was going home from work in a hurry, you know, always in a hurry, and was going up and down hills and swerves. I didn't want to go through the middle of town, had my radar detector on, you know, taking the back roads, trying to save 5 minutes, and went airborne over a hill, and a car come over with their bright lights on, and in midair I turned the wheel, and then when I hit, I jarred it off the road and then overcorrected, and like so many other people, slammed on the gas instead of the brake, and then rolled my car 4 times. I couldn't hardly get anybody to ride with me. And my fiance, every time we would get in the car, it would be one constant fight after another. Slow down, you're gonna kill yourself. You're gonna have a wreck, you're gonna wreck your car, you're gonna break your neck. As a matter of fact, the day of my wreck, we had fought and argued. Slow down. I even pulled off the side of the road, got out, and told him to drive, because he wouldn't leave me alone. And that night, I wrecked. I wouldn't listen. It won't happen to me. Nothing will happen to me. When I wrecked my car, I got thrown around in it. I never got thrown from the car, but I was thrown into the back seat of the car. And face down, I broke several ribs, and I broke my back, and I don't have any function. I've lost all motor skills from there. I've fallen out of my chair I don't know how many times, and I have to learn how to get back in it. You know, if you don't have your legs, it's, you know, total upper body strength. Learning how to maneuver around and getting from your chair into the bed. It's a total new way of living. There's so many different things, you know, the way we were before and the way we have to be now. And it's really hard on him. You know, it's hard on me, but it's hard on him because he has to help take care of me. He wants me to be the way I was before, which he realizes now that normal is a different person now. Normal isn't ever going to be what it was before.
It can happen to any of us, but when you forget the basic rules of driving, the price can be high. A small mistake can cause a lot of pain. It's not fair, but it doesn't have to turn out that way. Knowledge gives you the power to improve your odds. And now you have a better idea of what you have to know. You know you have to know yourself and the car. Watch out for those blind spots. Look over your shoulder. You know the road's talking to you, so pay attention to what it says. Signs, traffic lights, don't try and slip across on yellow. You're asking for trouble. Drive defensively. Don't count on people knowing what they're doing. Scan the road ahead, talk to yourself, and talk to the cars around you. Let them know what you're going to do. Know when you have the right-of-way and when you don't. Four-way stops, car on the right has the right-of-way. Turning across traffic, always yield to oncoming cars. Changing lanes, always signal. Keep good spacing all around. Getting on expressways, yield to the cars that are already there. Look for a gap, and then just go with the flow. The art of driving, just an introduction. That's all. The rest has to come with time and a lot of practice. Once you learn the art, you can take it with you on the road. If you forget the rules to smash up your car, well, it's not going to be worth $500,000. Thanks for coming along for the ride, and see you later.